This is the fourth part of the interpretation of same as ever, and the lesson here is about the principle of moderation in all things. Whenever people talk about economic cycles, there's always a common confusion. Since it's a cycle, it's inevitable to have ups and downs. If it rises to a certain extent, it's bound to fall, and if it falls to a certain extent, it's bound to rise. If it's so inevitable, why can't we grasp it? If you feel it has risen to its peak, why not sell? If you feel it has fallen to the bottom, why not buy? Others are greedy when I'm fearful, and I'm greedy when others are fearful. What's so difficult about that? True, it all seems apparent in hindsight. But those immersed in it can't see it because the economic cycle is not a mathematical problem, it's a psychological problem, a confidence problem. We've previously discussed Hyman Minsky's explanation of financial crises. He didn't calculate this or that index, he considered a difficult-to-quantify variable: confidence. Housel simplifies Minsky's cycle into 3 steps. 1. During economic stability, people become optimistic. 2. Optimism leads to increased borrowing. 3. Debt makes the economy unstable. In summary, stability is instability. Some may argue that since technological progress always enhances productivity, the economy should only rise and not fall. That's overlooking human psychology. If the market truly only rises, the correct choice isn't to hold but to buy. You should buy stocks, real estate, start companies, and you should borrow to do these. If everyone is rising, not progressing means regressing, and not making money is equivalent to losing money. Then stock and housing prices will be overestimated, and debt levels will be too high, leading to a collapse. The issue isn't that you don't know a collapse is imminent, it's that you don't know when it will happen. For instance, if a country's housing prices are significantly higher than people's incomes, and the birth rate is declining, logically, prices should fall. But hasn't this been said for over a decade? Haven't housing prices continued to rise? Minsky tells us calculations and facts are useless, only confidence matters. And confidence isn't limitless. To know where the peak is, you must cross it, and by then, it's too late. Behind, regrets abound, and ahead, there seems no way back. Always so. So, you might ask, is it just about confidence? Can't I use AI to monitor social media, analyze people's confidence in the current economy, create a stock market sentiment index, and invest based on that? Some have tried this, seemingly with some success, but it's ultimately impractical. Because you haven't changed the fundamental dynamics of confidence. The fundamental issue is that every action taken to increase confidence simultaneously contains the power to weaken confidence. This is a fundamental contradiction. This is why there's the saying, misfortune leans on good fortune, and good fortune hides behind misfortune. It's not about some mysterious force leveling the world, it's because every action has a dual nature, strengthening one trend while brewing the opposite. Psychologist and mystic Carl Jung admired Chinese culture and, inspired by it, described this phenomenon and named it enantiodromia. In Greek, essentially, everything in excess turns into its opposite. If you pay attention, you'll find this phenomenon everywhere. For instance, a region getting a lot of rainfall in one season might seem good for preventing fires. Initially, the air is humid, and fires decrease. But the excess rainfall makes plants grow rapidly, and these surplus fast-growing plants are more prone to burning in the next dry season, intensifying wildfires. Looking at tree rings, you can see fire scars after a period of heavy rain. The two complement each other. In the past, poor world health conditions made infectious diseases rampant, but because people were accustomed to it, the psychological impact of infectious diseases on society was small. Now, with better world health conditions, the disasters caused by infectious diseases are smaller. However, when a pandemic like COVID-19 breaks out, the impact on social life is significant. Stability is instability, safety is danger. Of course, the world has cycles and progress. COVID-19, severe as it is, has caused less damage than historical pandemics. But, no matter how great progress is, cycles cannot be ignored. A deeper truth is that every advantage comes with a certain disadvantage. For example, does the size of living organisms in nature follow the rule, the bigger, the better? If choosing between an elephant and an ant, we'd rather be an elephant. But being large comes with issues. The larger a lion, the stronger its combat ability, making hunting easier. However, it's also more likely to become the target of hunters. The taller a tree, the more sunlight it gets, but it's also more susceptible to wind damage. Being big also signifies inherent vulnerability. Ants don't get hurt no matter how they fall, but elephants feel the impact. Being big means consuming more resources, being less adaptable, moving slower, and having fewer offspring. A universal law in biology is that evolution encourages growth, then penalizes it. Housel says the size of living organisms is like leverage in investing. It amplifies returns but also amplifies losses. This is the source of gain and loss. All competitive advantages are, in a sense, simultaneously disadvantages. That's why great companies are always at risk of being overturned by new innovations. There's no everlasting solution. Sticking to one path leads to decline. That's why new species and old companies and new companies, face the same risk of elimination. Now, you might say, okay, I acknowledge cycles, I accept moderation in all things, so what should I do? I can't control the cycle, but can I at least avoid being harmed by it? Can't I find a degree? Indeed, you can, and there are a few ways. One approach is to quit while you're ahead. As mentioned in the previous part, comedian Jerry Seinfeld, at the height of his show's success, voluntarily stepped away. He said, maybe the show could continue to rise if I kept going, or maybe not. You only know after the decline, and I don't want to know. This mindset is undoubtedly good. You won't fail if you cash in when investment returns are already high. However, what if you're not satisfied? Bitcoin bought for $1 now rose to $5, should you sell? If you do, and it rises to $100 or $10,000, won't you regret it? If you don't sell, how would you know how high it will rise? Achieving satisfaction before reaching the peak, like Seinfeld, is extremely rare. Few can accomplish this. A more fundamental approach is to use systemic thinking, accept the reality that you can't grasp the cycle, and don't seek to. This means actively establishing redundancy, allowing yourself to make mistakes. Similar to Buffett, demand a margin of safety when buying and don't wait for the last penny when selling. This mindset can be applied to many aspects. Its core is not to focus on the outcome but to ensure your means are flexible and not exhausted, just like having the ability to improvise in a situation, making moves without being overly tied to a specific plan. There's also a more advanced coping method. Since every means has both good and bad aspects, positive and negative, why not have both? This strategy requires you to be both optimistic and pessimistic. But please note, this is not a case of both and. No one can be optimistic and pessimistic about the same thing. It's either optimism or pessimism. What you need to do is choose between the two based on different situations. Specifically, be optimistic for the long term and pessimistic for the short term. In the long run, our endeavors will eventually succeed. But in the short term, history is composed of a series of continuous problems, setbacks, and disappointments. You won't make it to the long term if you don't handle these short-term troubles well. Bill Gates is a great example. He founded Microsoft at a young age, daring to take on significant challenges and aiming to dominate the personal computer industry. Pessimism wasn't an option. But do you think Gates was carefree, indifferent? Not at all. Gates always ensured the company had enough cash to cover a year's worth of wages. He said, "People working for me are older than I am, and they all have children. I'm always thinking, what if we don't get paid?" Optimism lets you venture into developing new products, and pessimism ensures you still have some cash on hand. These two things aren't entirely contradictory because they don't operate on the same time scale. If you can achieve the compatibility of yin and yang, you will be considered complex enough and qualified to do great things. Housel suggests, save like a pessimist, invest like an optimist, plan like a pessimist, and dream like an optimist. We say, always think about specific situational problems. This is an example of a specific situational problem. It's not about wanting both, it's about if, then. A lion's body can't change size at will, but we can choose different approaches based on different situations. We don't advocate for a specific method, rather, we choose strategies based on the scale of the problem. Nassim Taleb had a vivid saying. If you ask about my political views and which ideology I follow, I don't have a single ideology. Ideology is determined by the scale of the problem. At the federal level, I'm a libertarian, I believe government spending should be minimized. At the state level, I'm a Republican, I think the government should let people stand on their own. For my city, I'm a Democrat, I support giving local people some welfare. For family and friends, I'm a socialist, you can share property with me. If you have this mindset, you won't be controlled by the cycle of everything in excess turning into its opposite. Instead, you'll have more initiative. To want too much control will be restricted by cycles, but if you first exercise self-restraint, you'll gain control. Housel says. Compared to high returns, I want financial security more. I hope not to be destroyed, and if I ensure I'm not destroyed, I can persist for a long time. I can let compounding work wonders, and then, I actually get a high return.
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.